Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of a double feature. We're looking at a classic Ingmar Bergman film, The Magician. This is a transitional film for the Swedish director. He's done a bunch of lighthearted films, or at least relatively lighthearted before this point. As soon as he hits this point, he then goes clear off of the deep end and starts going really, really dark. So we get like Winter's Light and Virgin Spring and Persona, and it's some heady stuff that way. So here we have him trying to make a transition. And with that vein, I think you picked up at least a little bit on this transition where you started talking about the shadows in the film are another character in this movie.
Yeah.
They're concealing, they're hiding, they're working with the protagonist and his troupe. So do you think, based upon that statement and the things you were writing in your review, do the shadows take on more of a supernatural stance, or are they more rational? Are they more faith-based, or are they more scientific in their manipulations?
Yeah, good question. So first off, if you couldn't already tell, I hated this movie. But I think I only, and that's just right now, I think I only don't like it because I had to watch it a couple of times, and I'm still not really sure if I'm understanding it. I'm understanding the film properly, so I'm hoping this conversation will help me gain a better appreciation for the film. But my takeaway, as of now, whether it's right or wrong, my takeaway, I just felt like the third time I went through it, I was like, okay, there's going on here with the shadows, and I sort of did a little research on the film to kind of understand it a little better, and my understanding was this is at a time when science is sort of exploding a little bit, and they're making more advances. So maybe Bergman's commenting on this in some way. And so I think that it really, in answer to your question, it depends on the viewer, because I took it as, after doing this research and watching it the third time, I took it as, so this is science that's kind of coming to light. You know, it's the rational that we are now understanding, and so therefore it's becoming apparent to us. But the first time I watched it, I was not there. I was more of this is something that we don't know, we can't understand, and so it's faith. We just have to trust that this will work because we don't have any logical explanation for it. It just is the way it is. It just happens for whatever reason, you know? Yeah. And so, to answer your question, I think that is the one thing about Bergman that I really admire and respect, is that he doesn't answer that question. He leaves it open to us. So are we more faith-based, or are we more scientific-based? And I was more faith-based because that's how I originally took it. After doing the research and looking into the film a little more and watching it a couple of times, I was like, oh, maybe it is more logic-like. But I wasn't there at first, so I don't know. What do you think?
I think I'm right there with you. The entire film, if you didn't pick up, for me, it is a muddle, and it's full of questions that if we look at it this way, it has all of this meaning for what a film is and what art is. But looking at those same evidences, all we have to do is approach it this way, and it comes out as a completely different thing. So my favorite is the witch's prophecy to the carriage driver that she sees a man hanging, and it ends up being him. And she just says, I see what I see, I know what I know.
Yeah.
But that's the question. Because if we're looking at the film in retrospect, all of the events make perfect sense of why that guy would end up hanging himself. Because he thinks that he's killed a man. And he's going to die anyway, and so he goes and hangs himself. did the witch,
Right.
does she actually have a access to future events? Does she actually have the spirit of prophecy? Or is this troupe just so good at what they do and making up plans that they were able to bully and coerce and rationally get this guy to go hang himself? Because he never killed a guy.
Yeah.
He was tricked into thinking he killed a guy.
Right.
Along with everybody else.
But right. Yeah. It's a love-hate for me and Mr. Bergman.
The movie itself doesn't answer that question, but I personally think that's why this film, more than any of Bergman's other films, needs to be read or seen as a statement on his own craft. Does he think that movies, does he think that cinema is simple rational exploitation of an audience to get them to do what you want them to do? Or is this more of a faith-based where the director or the film just sees what it sees, knows what it knows, and the audience is able to believe that prophecy fully?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, you're right. This idea of duality was extremely interesting to me. Obviously not the first time around, the third time around it was. But I really did. That was interesting to me because there were moments in the film where I believed him at face value. No questions asked. He told me something. I believed him. And then at the end of the film, I was thinking, oh, why do I believe him? I mean, what do I gain from believing him? And then of course it became this big thought process of, okay, well, how often does this happen in real life where people tell me things and I believe them at face value without even really looking into it myself, and so it was interesting because I felt like then it does become almost a self-reflection film where not only the reflection on him and his craft, but I think there's also some good questions in there about us and about how we interact with both the logical and the illogical.
Yeah, absolutely. There's several characters in the film who believe in the magic, just straight up. They believe that there's a witch. They believe that there's a magician. Even though that the magician, Max von Sydow's character, he confesses straight up, along with everybody else in the troupe, that they're frauds, they're tricksters, it's illusion. And it's interesting because the people who believe that they really have magic are scared of them. So you have this little servant girl, the wife of the Duke. She has that spiritual bond, whatever. Yeah, whatever. And then the coachman. But then you have the people who don't believe. So there's the policeman, the minister of medicine, the Duke himself. And when they're performing, they're exposing all of the tricks and laughing.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's a comment on the type of audience member that it takes to really be sucked into a film. The ones who already believe, they're sucked in very easily. The ones who are completely skeptic about the art, they are never sucked in during the performance, except at the very end, during the rather macabre horror segment, he gets I think he gets the Minister of Health to believe. Although as soon as the door is opened, he denies it. He says, "You've just instilled a mortal fear in me. I thought you were going to kill me. I didn't believe for a second anything supernatural was going on." I don't know if I believe him at that time, or he's just trying to save face.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good point. I'll have to watch that end part again and see. Side note, if you're going to watch this movie and you haven't seen it, just plan on watching it a couple of times.
What is going on?
I know. Oh my gosh. I was like, I watched it and the credits roll and I was like, okay, what?
It just ended? What?
I'm so confused. You didn't answer any of your questions. Then I was like, oh, the same guy who did Seventh Seal, I didn't like that movie either.
But it's very different from Seventh Seal, because Seventh Seal is just so layered in symbols, and there's not.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a very loose narrative for that film.
No, that's true. That's true. That's true.
That it's more explicitly philosophical, whereas The Magician, it's much more narrative focused, narrative driven.
Yeah.
But still, that just abruptness of the ending. You think he's washed up, but then you have to go perform in front of the king, and he's escorted out, and you're like, what? That was unexpected.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoilers.
No, it's true. It's true. Spoilers. Yikes. Okay. If you missed that, don't rewind, because it's spoilers.
If you haven't seen The Magician, try and get your hands on it and watch it. It's an odd little movie that asks a lot of odd little questions. You might have to watch it 4 times, but it is worth a watch. So,
that's true.
Watch it. Let us know what you think about it, even if what you think is pure and utter confusion. You think it's stupid. It's one that I say has grown on me. So,
all right.
There you go. Just like I think I can safely say Thane's Seventh Seal has grown on you.
Yes, it definitely has grown on me. I think that was, when we reviewed it, that was the 3rd time I had seen it, and I really liked it the 3rd time around, so
there you go. Anyway, come back next time. Look at our goodness as we watch good movies, and until then, why don't you do the same?